Hello, audience. My name is Andrew Oro Alomar, and welcome to Uncovering the Secret of How the Power of Love Heals, brought to you by the Thrive Healers Network. Today, we have an amazing guest. An amazing guest. Would you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yeah. First off, thank you for having me. My
Yeah,
name is Lisa Holt, and I am a certified life and relationship coach. And I help people come to the realization that relationship is a journey. And that's what I do.
I love that so much. Okay, so can you share? Well, the first question I want to ask you is, can you share a personal experience that highlights the transformative power of love in healing and nurturing oneself in the context of a relationship? If that's not too meaty.
I'm like, how much time do you have?
All the time in
Right?
the world.
I mean, the best example I have is my own relationship. I showed up to my relationship thinking I had it all figured out and I had done all my work
Mhm.
and I was quote unquote ready. And
Mhm.
even though when I met my husband, I wasn't really looking for a relationship,
Mhm.
the universe said I was ready.
Mhm.
and and what relationship showed me is when my husband showed up in my life, he highlighted all of my glitches.
Mhm.
And that's what relationship does, right? And we can either say, "Hey, I got some glitches." We all have them, right? And as soon as I realized, oh, this is what relationship is,
Mhm.
it's an opportunity to allow another person to become a reflection for the things that I get to work on and become better, and vice versa. Right. And as soon as that clicked for me, my relationship became effortless.
Mhm. I love that you said it became effortless. I want to ask you, how was that process? How was the process of, I guess, preparing yourself in the relationship, and hearing that you have glitches? Like, what in your mind were you thinking when these glitches were brought to your, I guess, attention? I hope that's not too controversial of a question. I wonder, like, how did you process these things and how did you work through them?
Yeah. By the way, I'm an open book when it comes to the journey
Okay.
because I wish that somebody had told me all the things that I was going to experience. Actually, maybe if they told me, I'd be like, "No, I'm good." Right? But but no, seriously, I I had to come to this realization of first understanding that I had to gain an awareness, because what happens, and I find this even with clients that come to me, is that you can't get anywhere until you step out of denial,
Mhm.
right? And and I was showing up to my relationship somewhat in denial.
Mhm.
Denial of the fact that I still had work to do,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so what happened is when my now husband would highlight my glitches, I'd be like, "Oh no, oh, this is why I do this,
Mhm.
and here's why this is important. It has to
Mhm.
be this way because," right? And and I always saw myself as an easygoing,
Mhm.
easy to be with person, right?
Mhm.
I'm always easygoing, but what I found, the reason why I was easygoing
Mhm.
is because I would avoid the hard things,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So if it was hard, I was out.
Mhm.
Right? And so what my husband did
Mhm.
is he said, "Okay, we have hit a hard point.
Mhm.
Give me your hand
Mhm.
and let's stick with this and see it through to the other side. Let's look through this. Let's dig into this and see, right? Where
Mhm.
this glitch comes from."
Yeah.
And it was the in that first opportunity to navigate conflict, right? And I'll rewind. One of the things that I really advocate with the work that I do is this concept that most people come into relationship going, you shouldn't have any conflict. If
Hmm.
there's conflict, it's bad. And that was my approach, right?
Hmm.
If I hit conflict, that meant it was wrong and it was bad.
Hmm.
And I had to realize that that's just how I was raised. That
Yeah.
was the program that I was given
Hmm.
from in vitro,
Yeah.
right? If you hit conflict, oh no, then this is not the right situation,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And fast forward, my husband took my hand and said, "We have just hit some conflict.
Hmm.
Now you get to navigate it, and
Hmm.
we get to the other side." And that first time that I experienced going through conflict and getting to the other side and realizing, oh my goodness, our relationship deepened as a result of going through it. I was like, oh, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and so that's a big part of what I do is really helping other people realize this concept that I went through myself and had
Yeah.
to get through to the other side.
Mhm. I love that you had the excuse me. I love that you had a relationship that was healthy enough to hold your hand through the conflict and for you guys to both see that this was valuable enough to work through it. I think we kind of live in the age where everybody is like they see something difficult and they immediately run. Or they have like one major conflict and they're like, nope. Just like you said, if there's conflict, it's really bad, really, really bad. And that helps me a lot too, because my thought process was if things are difficult as hell at the beginning, the relationship is a no. Um, but I'm wondering if that logic is flawed because um I guess those are things you have to work through so that you can be a healthy partner for each other. Um, so yeah, I want to ask you next, how does someone who's experienced major difficulties in life prepare themselves for a relationship that is healthy, if that makes any sense?
Ooh, this is a deep question. Well, the preparation, it's like when people say they're getting prepared to have a
Mhm.
kid, or they're getting prepared to whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
I don't know that you're ever really prepared. It's one of those things you just got to make a decision.
Mhm.
You're never gonna quote unquote feel ready,
Mhm.
or you're gonna be in denial thinking you're ready. Right? That's another thing, right? Because
Mhm.
most people that say they're ready for a relationship,
Mhm.
they usually have this picture or image of what relationship is, and
Mhm.
it's not. Because then when they get in a relationship, they're going, this is not what I imagined. I wasn't
Mhm.
ready.
Mhm.
Right? So you got two sides to that, right? You got the people going, I'm ready, right? And they get in and they go, no, I wasn't ready, right?
Mhm.
Or you got the person going, I'm not ready. I'm going to prepare. But
Mhm.
then they're never going to be ready,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I heard this phrase actually when I was really young and I didn't know what it meant.
Mhm.
Now I know what it means.
Mhm.
Love is a decision,
Mhm.
right? You got to decide.
Mhm.
You're not going to be ready. It's a process,
Mhm.
it's an evolution. Because when you think you got it figured out,
Mhm.
oh, there's another glitch.
Mhm.
And I'll say this, my husband brought this up in such a great way a couple weeks ago,
Mhm.
and it still makes me laugh. He says, so many people when they find a glitch or their partner finds a glitch, they're like, oh, we found something else, right? And they get down on themselves, beat themselves up, all this stuff, right? And my husband goes, well, what if
Mhm.
what if you had this perspective of, We found it. We found one. We found the glitch,
Hmm.
right? How much different does that feel, right? So then when you find the glitch, you're like, all right, we found one. Let's work on it.
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
And then it doesn't matter if you're ready. It doesn't matter because you're partnering with someone who shows up ready to grow every day. Every single day in my relationship. We've been together just over 10 years now. Every single day, even 10 years later,
Hmm.
I go, I have an opportunity to grow today. Every single day.
Hmm. That's really
And that
awesome.
doesn't go away.
Hmm.
It doesn't go away. You don't master it,
Hmm.
right? You get better, but you don't master it. You just keep getting better.
I love that. Is he a coach too? Because it sounds like you guys' relationship is something with magic.
Well, you know what's funny is so this has been really interesting. Initially,
Hmm.
it was just me, and I would joke with my husband. I'd be like, my husband gives me the material,
Hmm.
I package it up nicely and deliver it, right? Because here's the thing. My husband has this gift, and it's the gift that he has is there, and we joke about this, the wrapping isn't super nice. He
Hmm.
kind of get has the gift and throws it at you, right? And you're like,
Yeah.
right? And so we joke that he can throw it at me and I can wrap it up and make it look all pretty, right?
Mhm.
But what has happened actually is that a number of my clients
Mhm.
have noticed that collaboration, and
Mhm.
they actually want him to be part of the
Yeah.
session. So he has actually started coaching, and it's been just beautiful to experience.
Mhm. That's really awesome, and it's crazy that you say that because my first thought was, why aren't you guys doing this together?
It is happening.
That's awesome. I love because it seems like you guys' relationship is just so amazing. It sounds like you guys really have things figured out through what you've been through and how long you guys have been together. It just seems like you guys have a really great, I would say, motion.
Yeah, I would say this. I share it this way. It's
Mhm.
not that we out,
Mhm.
right? We are not perfect.
Mhm.
But what we do have figured out is that when we bump up against density,
Mhm.
we recognize it.
Yeah.
And we don't always catch it right away,
Mhm.
but we catch it pretty quick and we go, here's an opportunity. Gotcha. We got another one. Right?
Mhm.
And we use the tools. We use the tools that I teach my clients, right? I recognize that in order for me to be effective at what I do, I've got to be effective in my own relationship, right? I can't be the the hairstylist with jacked up hair. Like, right? I can't be the mechanic that's got a broke down car. No, nobody wants help from the person that can't even take care of their own situation. So I know that when challenges come, I have to navigate those challenges well so that I can share that with my clients.
Mhm.
And that's what makes our relationship work because we see every single day as
Mhm.
an opportunity. How can I grow today?
I love that thought process. And I think it's really good for us, people who are seeking relationships, people who are in relationships to understand that it is growth every single day. It's not you being beaten down or you being judged or criticized. It's genuine growth. Okay, so as a relationship coach, how do you define the balance between self-love and the dynamics of a healthy, flourishing relationship?
Ooh, that is such a fine balance.
Mhm.
The and to be honest, I have navigated that over the course of my relationship because here's the thing. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm an introvert.
Mhm.
And what that means is I need a lot of time alone. And that time alone is what fuels my tank to be able to be with people, right? And so what that means is before I had an awareness, that meant to me, oh, I don't need to be in relationship because I gotta have my time, right?
Mhm.
So then when I got into a relationship, I was like, okay, how do I navigate this
Mhm.
to where I get to have my time, but also allow my husband to feel like we have our time? And that can be especially a tricky balance for an introvert, right? Because I know in previous relationships, friendships, and so on,
Mhm.
I felt like I was clamoring to get the time I needed, and
Mhm.
it always led to resentment.
Mhm.
and and I knew that when I got into this relationship, I didn't want to feel that, and I was like, I got to figure this out. And so the most important piece to that is being in full transparent communication,
Mhm.
right? And I have, that is one of the biggest focuses I have in the work that I do,
Yeah.
because it's been my life's work of learning
Mhm.
how to communicate, right? And how to communicate well,
Mhm.
right? Because some people come from this perspective of, oh, you just got to say what's on your mind. You got, and that's what communication means to some people, right? For some people, it's like, as long as you let them know what's on your mind, you're communicating.
Mhm.
And I have to go, well, communication is also speaking in a way that can be received well, right? Because you can say all the things that are on your mind as much as you want, but if a person can't receive it, you have not communicated,
That's true.
right?
Yeah.
So there is this fine balance of knowing what I need and being able to transfer that information to my husband in a way that he can receive. And so, what that looks like over the evolution of our relationship, right, is at first, I took my time, right?
Mhm.
Like, at first, it was like, I know that I have to take the time that I need because my
Mhm.
husband's not going to necessarily give it to me because he's not going to know. So I got to
Mhm.
take it,
Yeah.
right? And I did that, right? And I spent a lot of my time on my business and my time on all the things that I wanted. And one day my husband came to me and he said, are you gonna prioritize us?
Mhm.
And I was like, mm, okay, I have swung the pendulum,
Mhm.
right? So now no longer am I clamoring for the time that I need.
Mhm.
Now I have taken the time that I need, but it
Mhm.
was at the expense of the time with my husband. So I had to reevaluate. And so fast forward to now,
Mhm.
I check in. And I'm very open and honest with my husband, and very focused on, okay, this is what I need, but let me check in with him. And I
Mhm.
say very regularly, I say, here's what I'm doing right now, right? Do you feel like we have enough time together,
Mhm.
right? And now it's to the other extreme where we enjoy our time together so much
Mhm.
that yesterday I was actually trying to do some cleaning, and we were talking, and every time I was trying to clean, we'd get so engaged in a conversation that I would stop. And he's like, well, why do you keep stopping if you're
Mhm.
trying to clean? And I said, because I want to connect to you, right? I don't want you to feel like my cleaning is more important than our relationship.
Yeah.
And just me saying that piece of, I desire to stay connected to you more importantly than I desire to focus on cleaning, says to him, my wife desires time with me,
I love that.
but she also needs to clean, right? And that also allows him to make a choice. And he said to me, he says, well, I want you to also be able to clean like you want to. So stop talking to me. Right?
I love
So you see how when you communicate well and you communicate with that intent
that.
of here's what I desire, right? And here's where we are,
Mhm.
it allows the other person to collaborate with you.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of relationships don't navigate well. They do what I started doing in the beginning, is taking what I needed, right? Or
Mhm.
pushing, some people push what they need on the other person
Mhm.
versus let's collaborate.
Mhm.
Here are my desires. Here's what we desire.
Mhm.
How can we find a mutually beneficial scenario?
Mhm. I love that so much. It really does seem like, well, seem like it really is that relationships are beyond companionship, they're cohabitation. And they require like health. And when I say health, I mean like almost like a doctor's visit where you go to get a daily or a weekly or monthly checkup, where you go to see what's wrong and you address the issue together. And you work on the best solution together. Um, I didn't really have a question with that. I'm just seeing how um to have a relationship with someone is to have just a supreme cohabitation and a desire to have that cohabitation. Um,
Absolutely.
and I want to ask you, like, in your work with people, does that come up as something that's scary for people? Um, and I ask that because it sounds scary to me. It sounds scary to cohabitate with someone. It sounds scary to communicate with someone honestly. I probably should not have just admitted that, but it almost sounds scary to be so vulnerable with someone. So how do you kind of navigate that?
Well, first you have to get to the root of why is it scary,
Mhm.
right? Like if you have an emotion, that emotion is rooted in an identity,
Mhm. Mm.
right? And so sometimes in order to figure out why am I identifying this way, it's because the programs that have happened along the way,
Mhm.
because we all show up to our relationships with some programming, right?
Mhm.
And that programming is designed to keep us safe.
Yes.
Right. But what happens is when you show up to a relationship, the programs that were designed to keep you safe have to change, right? Because those programs,
Mhm.
right,
Mhm.
they're not going to keep the relationship safe,
That's true.
right? And that's the biggest piece to what happens in relationships, right? Is two people show up with programs that have been keeping them safe, and then they want to bring that program to the relationship. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
The first part of it is that most times when I'm working with couples specifically,
Mhm.
most times people aren't even aware of their programs.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah. It's and until I can facilitate that process,
Mhm.
right? We don't get anywhere. So
Mhm.
my job is to get to that point quickly, right? That's the hardest part of my job.
Mhm.
Because I know that the stronger those programs are,
Mhm.
we got to get to it quick,
Yeah.
right? And so once a person realizes that they're showing up with programs and they recognize what the programs are and why they have those programs, and then why those programs are not serving the relationship,
Mhm.
they can go, oh,
Mhm.
I got to drop this program.
Yeah.
And that's scary,
Yes.
right? Because when you drop that program, you're going, I don't know how to operate. What was that? rating system.
Mhm.
Right?
It's almost like you have to create a new program together, like that
Yeah.
that facilitates survival together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it means you got to trust someone.
Mhm. Ooh.
Yeah. And that was hard for me, right? Because typically what happens when two people come together, usually this is the dynamic. One person trusts before they commit, meaning
Mm.
they got to gain trust in that person before they can commit to that person.
Mhm.
But the other person typically will commit
Mhm.
before they trust. They need commitment in order to trust,
Mhm.
right? And so when you have that dynamic,
Mhm.
you're going, I need you to trust me.
Mhm.
And the other person is going, but I need you to commit to me, right?
Yeah.
But I need you to trust me before I can commit to you. But I need you to commit to me before I can trust you. You see why this is a problem?
Yes, yes.
Somebody has to drop their program
Mhm.
so that there can be trust and commitment.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right? And so I know that as long as I can facilitate at least one person dropping their program, right?
Yeah.
We can make some progress.
Okay. I love that. So I want to ask you, um, which one do you think is best? Trust first or commitment first?
There's not one that's better or worse, right? Because
Okay.
here's what happens. And I'll use myself as an example.
Mhm.
I have always operated on I need well, let me back up. Prior to my husband, no man ever committed to me
Mhm.
besides my father, right? And my struggle was I would be in all these quote unquote relationships,
Mhm.
but he would never commit,
Mhm.
right? And so I wouldn't trust them
Mhm. Mhm.
because I'm going, I can't trust you fully until
Mhm.
you commit to me.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
guess what? I'd always end up in these relationships with guys who had trust issues.
Mhm.
Right? And I'm banging my head up against the wall going, what is happening? Like maybe I'm not designed to be in a relationship, right?
Mhm.
But what I found is when I met my husband, his first thing was, I'm committed.
Mhm.
And it threw me off. It threw me off because I'm going, how is he committing to me? He hasn't even developed trust. How is he committing? And he's going, I'm committed. We'll figure the rest out.
I love that.
And I'm going, okay, okay. If he's committed, then that means that I can mess up sometimes
Mhm.
and he won't run off.
Mhm.
Right. And I'm going, I can trust that.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
I can trust that. So, to answer your question, one is not better than the other.
Mhm. Mhm.
Some people need commitment in order to gain trust.
Mhm.
That's just how people are wired.
Mhm.
But some people, they need to trust because it's scary,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So the important piece is not whether commitment or trust is better, right? But to pair with someone who embodies the complementary trait that you need,
Okay.
right? Because for me, if my husband wasn't strong on commitment,
Mhm.
as soon as something wasn't going right, I'm out, right?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
My default, my program was
Mhm.
avoidance.
Yeah. Preach.
So I need somebody who's committed because they're going to keep me there, right?
Mhm.
To work through that stuff. I can't be with somebody who just operates on trust, right? I operate on trust. I need somebody that's going to hold me down when times get rough. So, if if your thing is trust, you got to find somebody who says my thing is commitment.
Mhm.
You complement each other, the yin and the yang.
Mhm. That makes sense. Abby. Okay, so I want to ask you next. Can you provide insight into common misconceptions people have about the role of love in healing, especially within the context of fostering healthy relationships?
Ooh, you are coming with the deep questions, and I love it. The role of love in healing, it
Mhm.
is everything. It is everything. Because I'll be honest, I didn't have that understanding when I came to my relationship at all. And my husband's the first to tell you, like, even though we were committed in the beginning, I wasn't fully committed. I was committed because he was committed, and I was fascinated by the fact that he was so committed.
Mhm.
And I was like, I can trust this, right? And underneath it all, even though I didn't have the complete awareness, there was a subconscious programming or reprogramming going on that was saying, I have security here, right? And if you know anything about the ways that we securely attach, right? My attachment style was avoidant,
Mhm.
right? So, in order for me to feel secure, I had to attach to somebody that had a secure attachment style,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
And so my husband's going, I got you. This is secure. And once I felt that security, it allowed me to dig into all of my stuff that needed to be healed. And I thought I had done all the work. Right. I've I've done my ayahuasca journeys, and I've done my fill in the blank. I've read the Wayne Dwyer books and the Tony Robbins and fill in the blank, right? I've done it, right?
Yeah.
You could ask me all the things, I knew it, right?
Mhm.
But I had not mastered love. And
Mhm.
I didn't realize how big of a category this was to unravel. Love can unravel all kinds of stuff
Mhm.
that business and work and all these other health and fitness like won't unravel.
Mhm.
I had mastered health and fitness, and
Mhm.
it helped me to grow. I had mastered work and business, it had helped me to grow. But the trifecta was love.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so love is the thing,
Mhm.
right? It's why people are afraid of it,
Mhm.
because subconsciously we know that we got to step up our game.
Yeah. Listen to you
Right?
say that, I'm scared as hell. I'm like, oh, this is.
We got to heal some stuff to be able to navigate love well. Because I mean, ultimately it's why relationships don't last,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? It's not complicated. Relationships don't last because when two people fall in love and their stuff comes bubbling up to the surface,
Mhm.
they don't know how to navigate it well. And when two people have stuff bubbling up to the surface that is unhealed, all chaos ensues. And if you don't have the tools, all chaos just keeps bubbling over
Mhm.
and you end up separated and in divorce.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's all it is. Relationships don't work because people don't understand the
Mhm.
healing that has to take place in the process.
Yeah.
Most people think, oh, if I get in a relationship, everything will be fixed.
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many times I have clients that they finally get, they're like, I'm ready. I've got my career and I'm ready for a relationship. Lisa, can you help me like get to that relationship? And then they get the relationship and they're like, oh no, this is not the one. This is not the one. This is hard. And I'm going, oh no, it's perfect. You're with the right one. And I mean, we could go into that. We don't need to go into that, but I don't believe in the one.
Mhm.
That's a whole other thing. But oh no, it's not about finding the one. It's about finding a one who brings up the stuff that you need to heal and you acknowledge and heal it. Right? It's not complicated.
I feel the exact same as you. I feel like there is not a one there or a specific one you're looking for. I feel like in a sense you choose that one
Mhm.
based on like your um I guess I would say like your emotional bandwidth and your willingness to be better with someone. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I say that you're exactly right. I don't think that there's a one you're supposed to specifically looking for and waiting for. I think you're 1,000% accurate in saying that that one is the one that you create. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah, I want to ask you next, how do you guide clients in recognizing and addressing past traumas and emotional baggage? We kind of spoke about it a little bit, but I wonder like what is your process of helping them through it?
How do I navigate it?
Mm-hmm.
Very carefully.
Mm-hmm.
Very carefully because it's, for lack of a better word, it's like navigating a landmine, right? Right? I for the most part, when people come to me, they're coming very open, right? Open and ready and willing. But that's not always the case.
Ooh.
And when a person, and I know it, I really, even on Zoom, all of my clients are on Zoom at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And this, and I know you're aware of this too, is you can still feel so much of a person's energy through Zoom,
Oh yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
And people are fascinated by it because they think they can still hide because it's not in person.
Yeah.
And I'm going, you ain't hiding, right? So my one of my gifts is the ability to navigate and allow people to see and feel
Mhm.
that I see them in a non-judgmental and compassionate way,
Yeah.
right? And that's important because the moment a person feels like I'm pointing at them
Mhm.
or or judging them or ridiculing or whatever the feeling is, it doesn't matter if I'm doing that. It
Yeah.
matters though if they feel that way, right? And so my role is to allow a person first, get this, to trust me. This all comes back to some people commit to the process of working with me, right? Some people need to be able to trust me before they commit to the process,
Yeah.
right? It's the same concept as any kind of relationship.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the people that come to me already committed to the process, it's a little easier because they're going, I'm paying you to find my trauma and bring it up, right?
Mhm.
So that's cool, right? But
Mhm.
those that come to me going, I need to trust you first, I have to do it very carefully. And what that means is I'm pretty good at recognizing the programs. I've
Mhm.
seen them enough. And they generally, even though everyone is an individual, right? And no one wants to be put in the box for the
Yeah.
most part. The reality is there are archetypes.
Mm.
And I'm very quick at recognizing the archetype based on various things. And
Mhm.
so once I gather that, typically that archetype, man, it shows because of the programs. Right? So once I know the archetype, then I can narrow down pretty quickly the potential programs that are running.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you share with
And
us what the archetypes are?
well, it so it depends because some people, for instance, if a person is trained clinically,
Mhm.
they don't call it archetypes. They call it
Mhm.
personality traits, or
Mhm.
or but if someone is spiritually trained, right, or energetically trained, they
Mhm.
may be aware of these different archetypes. And depending on who you ask, there's like 12 or however many. I don't really look at them labeled, right? Because you've got the hero and the victim and um the magician and all these other archetypes, right? I
Mhm.
don't really label them. I have an awareness of them, but I look at them energetically,
Mhm.
right? And try my best not to label right too much, right? But what does happen is I recognize the programs that are
Mhm.
running, and it allows me to narrow it down
Okay.
to, okay, potentially these are the programs that are running. Let
Mhm.
me work in this lane.
Okay.
And pretty effortlessly, every once in a while there's an outlier, right? But for the most part, I can narrow it down within a session. I'll kind of tap on that that program that's running, and I
Mhm.
see it. I see it quick, right? Because when you step on it, you literally see this like shift,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I can tell you just as a quick example. Recently, I had a new client that I was working with, and he's like this, his face is just, and as soon as I like stroked that program,
Mhm.
right? Because I was like, I cannot step on it. If I step on it, it's over, right?
Mhm.
He's gonna stick his foot in the mud, right? But as soon as I just like tapped on the program, his face just softened.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I was like, now we're ready. Now we're ready to do some work. and
Mhm.
and then it becomes effortless,
Mhm.
right? It's hard before the awareness,
Mhm.
right? Because also what happens is before the awareness is a lack of trust
Mhm.
because things are just like unknown, right? No awareness, in denial, and just coping and in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, you can't trust anybody.
Mhm. Oh, I think that's a good thing to look at for people who might be having issues with trust.
Yeah.
Are you still stuck in survival mode? And where? In what aspect? Um, I think that's a really, really great thing to look at. Thank you for saying that because now I can go and look at where I might be stuck. Because every single time you've mentioned trust, something inside of me like, no, no.
Yeah.
Especially when
And
it
that's
comes to
it.
relationships. I'm like, mm-mm.
That's literally where when you feel like we have tapped on a landmine.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned it, and there it is. um, so that's probably what I need to work on myself is my trust. Um, Lord. Anyway, I will ask you next, how do you address the notion of codependency in relationships? And what steps do you suggest for individuals to break free of unhealthy patterns of codependency and foster healthy relationships?
Yeah, this is an excellent one. Um, First, I'll say that a lot of times when we hear codependency, we think of the negative connotation around it.
Mhm.
And I will say this, codependency can be a good thing. For those of us who have a hard time with trust,
Mhm.
we need to chase codependency.
Really? Hmm.
Yeah. It's what can pull us out of our lack of trust.
Mhm.
Because codependency says, I completely trust this person with my life,
Yeah.
right? I depend on this person for my well-being,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
If your challenge is trust,
Mhm.
you're gonna have a hard time to be in an unhealthy codependent situation,
Mhm.
right? Your biggest hurdle is trust,
Mhm.
right? A person who is codependent trusts too much.
Mhm.
You see where that goes,
Yeah.
right? It has a pendulum that swings, right? And so a person that commits and trusts no matter what, right? And the version that most of us think of with codependency is someone who trusts and is dependent so much to the a fault, right? Where they're going like, come what may, I trust and depend on this person, right?
Mhm.
And I can't live without this person. I
Mhm.
can't live without the experience of being with this person, right? And there's more to it, right? But just to kind of give the context of, it's rare that people address the actual benefit
Yeah.
of moving towards codependency. Someone like myself who had commitment and trust issues,
Mhm.
right? I feel codependent with my husband, but it's a good thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's necessary, right? Because I had the complete opposite. If anything happened, I was out the door, right?
Mhm.
My relationship needs me to feel some codependency,
Mhm.
right? So that may not be what you were asking, but I felt like it was it was
You know,
necessary.
it it was excellent, absolutely spot on. I needed to hear that, and I needed for you to say that just because it made something clear in my life that I didn't even know I needed clarity on. Um, I'll tell you after, but yeah, it hearing you say that I didn't even know that I should have asked that question, but like I wrote down a list of questions I wanted to ask you. Um, and something told me ask that question. So after I asked it, something you said really brought a situation that I'm currently in to light and why I keep coming back to that situation and what I'm supposed to be learning from this situation. So thank you for answering it and offering me profound healing in this moment.
Mm,
Even though you don't even know what it is yet, but just yeah, there was a reason why I asked it, and the reason why was because of what I'm feeling right now. So thank you so much. Um, okay, so next I want to ask you, how do you navigate the differences in love language, if that's important? among individuals and help them understand and appreciate each other's unique way of expressing love.
Ooh, yes. I have to say, I love all of your questions.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it. Um, the love languages.
Mhm,
It's funny because it's rare that you even encounter someone who hasn't heard of the love languages, right? But the interesting thing that happens is a lot of people navigate their relationships from their own love language.
mhm,
And I see this over and over and over again. And you know, recently I've been working with a couple specifically that I'm thinking of this where I immediately saw it,
oh.
right? And it was obvious to me, like blaring obvious, right? And and they were just navigating conflict, butting heads.
Mm,
And it was just so amazing because I think it was the very first session. It may have been the second session, but either way, I saw it. And so I said to it was a male and female, and I saw immediately that the female's love language was words of affirmation.
mm,
The male's love language was touch,
mhm,
and it was very obvious. Again, this is on Zoom,
mhm,
right? And and they were in conflict
mhm.
during, before, and brought it into the session.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
yeah. And it was fascinating as I just sat back and watched
Mhm,
and let it somewhat play out.
mhm,
And at one point I stopped and I said, would both of you be willing to try something? And they said, sure, anything. Right? Because at when people are at that point, they're desperate, they're in survival mode, right? They'll try anything.
mhm,
And I said, I want you to recognize that I'm going to ask you to do something that one of you is not going to care about doing at all, but I'm going to ask you to be open. And they said, okay. I said, would both of you be willing to just hug each other?
mhm.
And and the guy was like, yeah, yeah. And the girl was like, she had this like look on her face. Like, what's that gonna do? Right. And here's what happened. I said, are you willing? And she's like, sure. You know, kind of rolled her eyes, whatever. Right. She's like, sure. They hugged. They hugged. And when they hugged, his face was towards me.
Mhm,
Right. They were sideways, but his face was facing me.
mhm,
And he softened so much
mhm.
when they hugged. And
I
I
love
could
that.
see she felt nothing,
Mhm,
right? She didn't even see his face.
mhm, mhm.
So when they pulled back apart for just a moment, for just a moment there was peace. But then she launched back in, right? And I just took notice and let it be, right? So fast forward to the next session,
Mhm,
I knew, right? I said,
mhm,
his love language is touch and hers is words of affirmation. So
mhm.
their next challenge was I gave him the challenge of telling her something he liked about her. And it didn't matter what it was, it could be small. And when he did that, she softened.
Oh,
And
wow.
there was a moment of peace.
Mhm,
And so I let them experience both sides unaware, right? Because neither one of them knew what I was doing, right? They were just like, we'll do anything, like, we're desperate, right? But what that did is then I combined the two, right?
mhm,
And so I gave the assignment without even having the conversation of these are the love languages, right?
mhm,
I gave them the assignment for 1 week for him to tell her something every single day that he was grateful for about her. And when he would do that, and he had to start, and there's a reason for that I won't get into.
Okay.
He had to start. And when he gave that affirmation,
Mhm.
she would give him a hug. That was their assignment for the week.
Hmm. I love that.
I don't have to tell you how different the next session was.
I love that so much.
Night and day, night and day.
So love language is very important.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's important. You don't necessarily feel its importance when it's happening,
Yep.
but you feel its importance when it's not happening,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? People just go on about their day and weeks, right? Just going through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
But when that love language is not being nurtured over weeks and months, people hit conflict
Mm-hmm.
and don't even realize because of a lack of awareness,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That it's pretty easy to soothe conflict,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's not to say that all you got to do is nurture the other person's love language,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a way to create the environment, right? It's just like if you're going to plant a garden, the easiest way to have success in that garden is to have amazing soil.
Mm-hmm.
If you have great soil, it's pretty easy for things to grow. But if you have just sand and no nourishment in the soil, if you don't amend the soil, you're fighting to get things to grow, and people are going, "Oh, I don't have a green thumb." It's like, you don't have to have a green thumb. Just amend your soil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apply the love languages. It's great soil, and then things aren't so hard.
Yeah.
It's easy. You got the foundation there. It's strong.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. I love that so much. I think that's going to really, really help people who are struggling with that and who don't really understand what importance a love language might have. Um, I think we're kind of moving into an age of like supreme awareness um, in all aspects of life. And I think learning that there's an aspect of someone that someone needs to be, I guess, like expressed more into will be helpful for those seeking out relationships and healthy relationships and long lasting relationships when they begin to seek them out. Or I don't know, I feel like seeking them out is kind of like a strong word because like it's looking like when you want love, it comes when you're not looking for it. And when you want it, or like when you're looking for it, it runs away. Um, so I guess I'll say when you're open to it coming to you. Um, but yeah, kind of rambled a little bit. Um, but yeah, now I want to ask you, can you elaborate on the role of forgiveness in the context of healing within relationships?
You
And
are bringing out all the questions.
both forgiving oneself and forgiving the partner for past mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny because that layers on top of the love languages. One of the things that I had told you that I'm on I think week 10 of 16 for my relationship program that I facilitate.
Mhm.
And during this program, they're reading Love as a Way of Life.
Mhm.
And Love as a Way of Life is a book written by the same author of the Five Love Languages, Gary Chapman.
Mm.
And and he in this book, Love is a Way of Life, he presents
Mhm.
seven habits that help you to have a happy and authentic love life.
Mhm.
And one of those seven habits is forgiveness.
Mm.
It is imperative that you practice forgiveness in relationships because every single day your partner is going to do something that you don't necessarily agree with,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you are able to forgive
Mm-hmm.
and start using that muscle,
Mm-hmm.
if you're holding on to something that either you did or your partner did, it creates and builds resentment.
Mm-hmm.
Resentment of yourself, right? For, we talked about conflict. One of the ways that some people navigate conflict is through accommodating,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a lot of times when we accommodate during conflict and we accommodate over and over and over,
Mm-hmm.
it's our way of not forgiving ourselves,
Yes.
right? Because we keep giving in and letting the other person win, right? And accommodating in and of itself is not a bad thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if that becomes your mode of operating through conflict,
Mm-hmm.
it it's an indicator that you're just avoiding
Mm-hmm.
and accommodating what's happening, and that can lead you to resent your partner, but it also can lead you to have resentment of your own choices, right?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
And the antidote to resentment is forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you forgive, you drop all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hold attachment to what happened that wasn't ideal. And a lot of times people think of forgiveness of like the big things like, infidelity and
Mm-hmm.
things like this, but there's little things like your partner leaving dishes in the sink, right?
Yeah.
Right? If your partner leaves dishes in the sink and it bothers you and you keep allowing that and not navigating it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It leads to days and weeks of you not forgiving your partner for the thing the thing that your partner did that you felt like you needed that they may not even know,
Yeah.
right? Or, it could be a scenario where they know and it just doesn't happen or it's not communicated well or whatever the thing is, right? But regardless, if you can forgive, it means that even if that thing happens again, you can let it go
Mm-hmm.
because you're practicing a state of forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if
Yeah.
you can't learn to forgive, you can't have a successful relationship, because even if your relationship lasts for 50 years, it's being suffocated in resentment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not healthy.
And the resentment can be the death of a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people stay in it and it kills them from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've seen that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be a little bold to say this. This is not in all scenarios,
Mm-hmm.
but diseases like cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's festering resentment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying every single case, right? But there are a lot of opportunities for forgiveness that people just suffocate
Mm-hmm.
inside their body and inside their cells, and it breeds dis-ease.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we wonder why cancer is becoming so prevalent,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, some of it is environmental, right? But we're still pulling the trigger. And I truly believe that a lack of forgiveness is one of the biggest ways that we pull the trigger on things like cancer and all these other diseases that are out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right about that. Whew, that was heavy. Okay, so next I want to ask you, what advice do you give individuals who may be struggling with self-esteem issues and how it affects their ability to attract and sustain healthy and loving relationships?
Ooh, self-esteem. This is interesting because I'll be honest, a lot of the areas of relationship that I work with people on are the areas that I have worked within myself.
Mhm,
Um, Self-esteem was not an area of challenge for me. I'll be honest
mhm,
about that. Um, Thanks to how I was raised. So I'll be honest and transparent to say that that's a tricky area for
mhm,
me, and it's an area where, while I'm a very empathetic and compassionate person,
mhm,
um, self-esteem's a tricky one,
mhm,
because I believe that every single human being has strengths. Every single human being, right? And our circumstances, the way we were raised, the environment, our, the ways that we learn,
mhm,
right? And that's a huge one, right? This may seem like a little tangent, but the educational system is not geared towards a lot of people and how they learn, right? And that can hinder a person having a healthy self-esteem, right? Because if we really go to the root of it, a lot of the self-esteem issues that come up for people start in school,
mhm,
right? Bullying and learning differently. And I even remember this in school where, you know, the people that learned a little differently,
mhm,
right, got picked on,
yeah,
right? And that leads to layers and layers of programming, right? And self-esteem issues where, obviously, if a person's an adult, they can't rewind back and learn and go through school differently, right? But it is worth noting that there are different ways to learn, right? And just because someone doesn't learn how to read a certain way, or someone doesn't learn math a certain way, it is our responsibility as a collective to start doing things differently. And I could go on and on about this, but,
mhm,
a lot of the ways that our society is growing is not lending itself to helping people have better self-esteem,
mhm,
right? Social media is not helping, right?
mhm,
Virtual reality is not helping, right? If your reality is not ideal,
mhm.
now you can, we have a virtual reality, right? Get another one, right? That does not help self-esteem,
Yeah.
right? And so, to answer your question, I think that we have been coddled.
Mhm,
We have been coddled, and a lot of times unknowingly, right? Parents don't necessarily want to coddle their kids per se, but they show up to parenthood
mhm,
with certain programs
yeah.
that allow them to cope as kids and children, and they're going, I'm going to become the parent that doesn't that makes sure that my kid doesn't have to cope this way, right?
Mhm,
But then it leads to kids not having the awareness,
yeah.
right, to work through the uncomfortable things. Because, to be honest, self-esteem, all it is, if we're looking at
Mhm.
low self-esteem, really, and this is a strong opinion, but I'm just going to say it, it's 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 people that haven't had to stretch
Mhm,
in uncomfortable situations. The more you're put in uncomfortable situations, the more you have an opportunity to stretch,
Definitely.
right?
Mhm.
But if every time there's something uncomfortable and somebody else takes care of it, if the parent takes care of it or whoever takes care of it, and then you don't have to feel it, when you become an adult, you don't know how to feel things.
That is true. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So the antidote to low self-esteem is to find ways to get uncomfortable
Mhm.
and know that it's gonna be okay. Because when you get uncomfortable, it's an
Mhm.
opportunity to stretch.
Mhm. I love that so much. That is a delicious way to wrap us up. I love that so much. This interview has been absolutely wonderful. Um, I have a few more questions, but I just wanted to add that in there really quick. I want to ask you next. If people would like to find you, how can they do that?
Yeah. They can email me at info@magicinrelationships.com. I'm on Instagram at effortless living Lisa.
Mhm.
And those are the primary ways you can touch base with me.
Okay. Okay. And also I want to ask you, do you have a free gift to offer the audience today?
Yeah, I have such a passion for meditation, and it is one of the tools that has really allowed me to grow deeper in my own awareness. And so one of the foundational meditations that I share with clients and that I'm sharing with your audience is an heart opening meditation that I created, and it's just a 19-minute meditation. It's great for a person that maybe hasn't done meditation before, or somebody who says that, oh, meditation doesn't work for me, I can't quiet my mind. I hear that a lot.
Me
Right.
too.
It's the perfect meditation for that. It, like I said, it's quick. It's 19 minutes, and even if your mind wanders, that's okay. Right. And so that's what I have to offer your audience today.
That's awesome. Okay. I want to thank you again for giving me so much of your time today and just sharing all of your amazing wisdom with my audience and with anyone who's watching from your audience. Um, I'm really excited for people to watch this interview and feel the same way I feel listening to you and unraveling my issues and my programs just by hearing you speak. So thank you again so much for being here and giving me so much of your time today.
You're very welcome. It was such a pleasure.